I was born April 13th, 1995 in New York City. It was on that day that my mother sat and gazed at the wonder and thought to herself, holy shit, I made this thing? She had no idea that that little bastard in which she held so dearly was about to put her through a whole hell of a lot, and God bless her for that. My mother and father met in Queens, and for a brief moment in history were actually in love. But as we sometimes know, that's not enough to keep two people together. To be completely honest, I never understood how my mother and father even got hitched up in the first place. They were two completely different people, but nevertheless, after some good and some bad, they decided to call it quits. Now, while I always found New York to be the best place on earth, my mother couldn't wait to get the hell out of there. What I saw as poetically unique, she found cold and depressing. It was one phone call she made her plans to move down to South Florida where her parents had been living for the past 3 years. Let's fast forward a bit. I was bad at school. Matter of fact, I sucked at school. You see all this generic school shit that I found on the internet? Yeah, well, that wasn't me, baby. I was too busy cutting class, freestyling with my homies, and getting high as fuck. By the time I dropped out, I'd been kicked out of almost every school I'd ever attended. I know, right? Anyways, with no school, I got various jobs to pass the time. I went to work, came home, went to sleep, only to wake up to do it all over again. I was getting sick of it. Truth be told, the only thing I ever really loved was movies. I could never find myself truly being happy doing anything else. So I decided right then and there, fuck this job, fuck this depressing ass routine I got myself in. I'm gonna buy a one-way ticket to California and see what happens. I mean, what's the worst thing that could possibly go down? Maybe like end up homeless or some shit. But first, let's talk about my old man for a minute. You see, as a kid, my father was pretty lenient on the things we would watch. My father, God bless him, was always just scraping by. Born in Argentina, he moved to New York when he was 21, and he's kind of just been winging it ever since he got here. When my mother moved to Florida after the divorce, he followed shortly after to be closer to me. The custody agreement stated that we were to hang out on the weekends, and so my father did everything he could to make the most out of that time. Unfortunately, I never learned how to speak Spanish, and his English was never perfect, so we always had this disconnect. Money was tight, and so we watched movies. And I'm talking like a lot of movies. I was probably the only kid in my elementary school who had seen all the Bruce Lee flicks, or Die Hard, The Matrix, Scarface, The Godfather. I began looking at life as if it were a movie, and my next big scene was California. More specifically, South Central LA. I had arrived in LAX and booked a motel in Inglewood for about $35 a night. I was with my two best friends, Brendan Browski and Dawson Marquez. Yeah, that Dawson. And where I may have come to California to break into the film industry, something else happened. Instead of getting an apartment, we got a school bus. And instead of getting in the film industry, we ended up homeless and traveling the West Coast. Funny how that happens, huh? Regardless of what you think, you learn a lot after being on a bus for a while. Things were different on the road. For the first time in my life, I truly felt free. I was broke, smelly, and good looking. I didn't get caught up in materialistic shit because, well, there was no need for it. We ate our food from garbage cans and we made money playing music and telling jokes. My whole perspective on life had completely changed after about a year of living with these guys. Life is only as shitty as you perceive it, and we were having a ball. We picked up every hitchhike we came across, which usually turned out for the best. By the end, we had a little crew of dirty kids populating our bus. Did I mention the bus's name was Karma? Anyways, we traveled from Washington down to New Orleans, stopping at every truck stop along the way, asking drivers if they wouldn't mind giving us a couple gallons to keep us moving. All this was going down, I was constantly writing and thinking about movies. That bug never left, and anybody that hung around me long enough could see it. I'm interested in people, more importantly, real people. And these kids were as real as they got. We had no delusions of our situation, and I loved every minute of it. But I also saw where this lifestyle could inevitably end. You see, life on the road may have been nice, but it definitely can get ugly. So eventually we went home. I got my GED and I began the process of enrolling at Full Sail University. And now, I'm doing my thing. So, who am I? I hate stupid ass questions like this, but if you were to twist my arm for an answer, I'd tell you above all else, I'm a storyteller.
Chibop, my baby.